Hey, and we're back. I'm your host, BKP, and we're at Circuit World here in Blue Ridge, beautiful downtown Blue Ridge. A nice Friday morning. A little cool this morning. Welcome, Dr. Whaley. Okay, let's just jump right in. Your tie. Yes. So let's start with your tie this morning.
I wondered if he was going to get that. You want to turn my jacket around for him and let him take a quick look at the jacket. That's my Stormy Jackson, my Stormy
Randy
Daniels jacket. It's a showbiz jacket, okay?
All right.
It's a Randy Travis tour jacket, but it's showbiz. So this is my John Bolton tie.
John Bolton.
Yes.
Okay.
You'll notice it's got all the flags on there.
Okay.
And John Bolton, I have been a great fan of, and there are other people who have detracted from John Bolton over the last decade, but I believe that John Bolton is a straight shooter. I've watched him. I've listened to him. You know, he helped the Bush legal thing down in Florida in the year 2000 when they were counting votes and all that stuff. I just think the guy's got great experience. I think he's a real straight shooter. I think he'll deal with every country on that flag and all the rest of the countries in the world in a straightforward, business-like manner, but he won't take any guff. I was getting ready to say something.
Well, you know, he got a recess appointment and never could get confirmed by Congress, but he got a recess appointment to the UN by Bush, and then he couldn't get confirmed. So, but yes, Bolton is in, McMaster's is out. So you're okay with that?
Yeah, I am. I think it's a better job for a guy like Bolton than it is for a general anyway. Honestly, do. I mean, I think Bolton is a level-headed, very analytic guy. I don't know anything about his management style, and of course neither do you. Nobody would know about his management style. I don't think he's going to be authoritarian, dictatorial, kind of high-handed, I believe, like I've read that McMaster was. How do we know? You know, we know what we read, and I haven't got anybody that was working. That I don't know anybody that knew him or was working in there. I know people, you know, over in the CIA and a few of those places, but I don't know anybody that worked with him.
Well, it's time for Ask the Doc here with Dr. William Whaley, and we appreciate the Georgia Cancer Specialist affiliated with Northside Hospital that brings this segment to you. I mean, that's like a screeching halt and going in another direction, but I always have to be concerned with not how far off we will get away from medical questions.
Yeah, okay.
Because, well, I'm not blaming you. Because you're talking about Bolton and McMaster. You open up with that, and I have a thought, but I better save it for the All-Star.
Go ahead with the thought. Go ahead.
Well, the only thing is H.R. McMaster. You know, I read the book Dereliction of Duty that he wrote about Vietnam. All right, I've read that book that H.R. McMaster wrote. My concern with him being a general is and this can't be the only reason that he's been replaced, but it's the National Security Advisor Department that generates all the information. So when the President of the United States gets on the phone with a world leader, they have all the top things in front of them. Don't say this because this just happened yesterday in the country. It could be bad. You know, this is where you're at on this and this and this. At the top, supposedly, of that day said, do not, in bold letters, congratulate Vladimir Putin. Okay? President Trump called, congratulate him. He's the final say.
By the way, he's never seen that.
Yes, but what happened the very next day is that document made it to the press.
Yeah.
That's troubling to me. That is troubling to me. And so with H.R. McMaster, that's your department. That's what you're supposed to do, and that made it to the press. That's troubling for me.
Yeah, I don't think Trump ever saw it. His briefing about that day was by telephone, and the book. He and the book were in geographical separate locations. But you're right. It was the leak was out there within 12 or 24 hours.
I'm not for sure. We're going to move on, but I'm not for sure.
It has a whole lot to do with vaccinations before travel.
Well, I got one more thing. I told you, but I have one more thing.
All right.
I'm not for sure. You can Google it and look it up, but I am, when I say positive, Winston Churchill called Stalin and I think said happy birthday.
Yeah.
All right, and
okay,
so
and I'll say,
so.
Well, you brought this up while we were off the air. Do you believe that Hillary Clinton fixed the election for Putin?
No.
You think he won on his own?
He won an election. End of story.
All right.
He won an. You know what? What's funny is they keep. Oh, wait a minute. All right. Now, see, you did. This is. We have some time.
But let me say payback for your rating.
No, let me say. Yeah, let me say this.
You give me $500 million, and I'll help you get elected.
I have watched. Okay. I have watched the video on the news of how many times some guy in Russia stuffed a ballot in that box. Did you see that? Like,
no.
Where there's a video and they're like, they're calling it a sham election, which, okay, it's a sham election, and somehow we knew Putin would win. And
Russia and South America.
His opponent, now stop it, his opponent would either lose or die, whichever comes first, by poison. We know who he is. We know what's going on. Former KGB, always will be. But the video of that guy continuing to stuff ballots in a box. Have you looked at Chicago and how many people that should be in the cemetery are voting? You know what I mean?
Well, they do that in Atlanta.
Right. So, anyhow, moving right along.
Great story about Atlanta. Yeah, go ahead.
We got to move along here on this.
All right.
Okay. Are there certain vaccinations you should get before traveling abroad? If so, what are they?
You're going to laugh when I tell you that this is probably one of the more complicated questions that we've ever gotten. And I think to do honest by it, put that chart up if you would, please, Amanda. The answer to the question is, where are you going? What is your background? What are you going to be doing there? And how long are you going to stay? So if any of us are going to be going to Paris or London or Madrid or somewhere, the answer is no. You don't need to have any vaccinations. Making the assumption that you've done what we told you to do all along, like get the flu shot. Because when you travel, particularly in any place that you could consider even close to third world, and I might throw Greece in there, and I might throw some rural areas in Portugal and Spain in there. All Americans should have been immunized against hepatitis A and hepatitis B, and those are the epidemic liver things that you'll get from salads and so forth when you're traveling in places that aren't quite as clean as Blue Ridge, Georgia, or Atlanta. But that big old chart there has about 15 or 18 things. I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way back. Cholera, yellow fever, typhoid, rabies, meningitis, Japanese encephalitis, and then hepatitis and influenza. So, anybody who's been in the military has been immunized against everything on that list. But the only places that you have to really worry about being immunized are if you're going to be in third world countries where you're going to be in poor sanitation conditions, and that is unlikely. There are in every community what we call travel clinics. And most of the big hospitals in Atlanta have travel clinics, and Coca-Cola and UPS and all that send their executives there before they go and post them, because you've got executives from Coca-Cola and UPS living in Cambodia and Laos and in Vietnam and so forth. And yes, they have to be immunized against stuff that they might get there. But you don't get that from your family doc, and you don't even get that at the Fannin County Public Health Department. If you are going to be traveling someplace that I would call off the beaten path, you need to go to a travel clinic. The biggest thing that this question really asks is, what do I need to do when I'm going to be traveling overseas? And I think the biggest issue that people think about is travelers-associated diarrhea. Amanda, what's the buzzword for travelers-associated diarrhea? Montezuma's what? Montezuma's revenge. So people, when they are talking about how do I get prepared to travel and do I need immunizations, the very next question out of their mouth is, can you give me some antibiotics to take so I don't get diarrhea while I'm in Egypt? Or like Egypt, yes, I'll be going in Morocco next week. So in Morocco next week, I've got to take all the precautions I'm getting ready to tell you about traveler's diarrhea. I'm not going to take any extra shots. But traveler's diarrhea is extremely severe, can be fatal, and it's one of those common sense ways of avoiding things. For example, when you're in Acapulco, Mexico, or you're in Cancun, Mexico, and you're on the beach, there's a guy there chopping up mango and stuff and selling it in a paper cup, and you see all the Mexicans buy it and eat it, and you say, man, that looks good, it's fresh fruit, the guy just cut it up. That's an absolute no-no. So the prevention things are, most of this stuff is waterborne, and water's on the outside of everything, so all your water has to be bottled, even in Mexico. So you get legitimate bottled water. You take the lid off of it. You don't put it in a glass because the glass may have been washed with no clean water. You don't put ice in it because the ice can be made of bottled water but be made in a machine that's cleaned with regular water.
That's interesting.
You drink it out of a straw instead of out of the top because the straw was clean, and you don't know how much stuff got underneath the edge of the bottom of it. You don't eat any fruit that you do not peel yourself just before eating. So if there's a banana there that somebody has chopped up, you don't eat it. But if you get a banana with a peel on it and peel it yourself, you can eat it. You don't eat any food that is not steaming hot. So you're not going to be eating salads or anything like that unless you made it yourself, or you know that it was made with purified, disinfected water, which I'll mention in just a minute, or was made in the intercontinental. Can't be, as it says in this long list, price is no guarantee, and fancy is no guarantee. So you can be in an intercontinental hotel that costs $800 a night and the food is expensive, but that is not a guarantee that the guys in the kitchen did the procedures right. So in this long list of things about preventing yourself from getting sick, and by the way, JR, I got this from my tablet here. You gave me it, so I wrote it on here. Here's my tablet with the news on it. All right. It says, every food that you eat should be thoroughly cooked, served hot. Fruit should be only those that you peel. Beverages should be bottled. They should be drunk with a straw and not a glass. And hot tea and coffee are safe alternatives to bottled water if you know that they were boiled just before they were used. And it says, price doesn't guarantee hygiene. Freezing does not purify. Alcohol doesn't purify. So you say, look, I'm getting a gin and tonic. The alcohol will kill the germs. Doesn't happen. And you even can get epidemics of traveler's diarrhea from from bottled drinks. If you open up a Coke or a Mountain Dew or something down there and it doesn't fizz, then don't drink it. Because the fact that it fizzes will tell you that it still has the seal that it had when it left the factory, and if the fizz is gone out of it, then it's probably lost its sterility. The very last thing it tells you is a fruit salad, lettuce, chicken salad are real unwise choices. And lastly, I want you to think about this. When you go to a restaurant and you see that nice clean bottle of ketchup in America, they go back and refill those bottles of ketchup from big things full of ketchup, and then they wipe the outside of the bottle off. So this is an interesting study where they went to Mexican restaurants in Houston, Texas, and Mexican restaurants in Guadalajara, Mexico. And they tested the ketchup and the condiments on the table. What percentage of the condiments on the table in a Mexican restaurant in Houston do you think were infected with E. coli? Pull it out of there.
I'm going to say as high as 50%.
Well, it was 40.
Okay, yeah.
Now, you go to Guadalajara, Mexico, which everybody uses as an example of not so safe a place, and it was 66%. So yes, it's more, but it isn't a whole lot more. So even in a Mexican restaurant in the United States, you got to be careful about the ketchup. You got to be careful about the pico de gallo. And what is the one food in a Mexican restaurant in the United States or overseas Mexican restaurants, it's the most contaminated? Just stop and think about it. It's the one we like the best. It's guacamole. Because the guacamole is all chopped up, it sits there in the back, it takes a whole bunch of those avocados to make it. The surface of it hasn't been cleaned with that really good sterile water. So now the next thing you want to know is, we own a place in Mexico, and we go there, and Jane lets people stay there. But I think right now, her builder's staying there. So when you go to our place in Mexico, then we have this little bottle of iodine drops there. And there's a bottle there that says water purification, but that it says chlorine water purification, and it's actually just bleach. And then it's got the iodine purification. So if you take a quart of water and you put 2 drops of bleach in a quart of water, that'll sterilize it, and you could drink it after 3 minutes. Or put 5 drops of the iodine in a quart of water, you can drink it within 30 minutes. And you use that water to wash the vegetables that you're gonna eat. Then, in that case, they're safe. And then if you take water, you don't have that, and you boil it for 3 to 5 minutes and let it cool, it's going to be clean because the pan's clean you cooked it in, and the water will be clean, but then you got to be careful what you put it in. So if the glass hadn't been washed with that special water. So that whole thing about the immunizations is there's no special immunizations unless you go into some special place, and then you've got to go to a travel clinic to get the right immunizations, and they will counsel you on the most important thing, which is then traveler's diarrhea prevention. Now, 2 other things that we're going to get off of this. Many people say, in fact, it's been last week, give me an antibiotic to take while I'm traveling in Mexico because I don't want to get traveler's diarrhea. That's the last thing you should do, because taking that diarrhea can give you taking that antibiotic can give you that fatal diarrhea. But if you're really going to be camping, or you're going to be backpacking or scuba diving or something in Mexico, the doctor may give you a 3-day supply of antibiotics that you will take if you begin to get abdominal cramps and real pathologic diarrhea, because you'll need to be treated for it. And then lastly, there's the non-pharmacologic, everybody's heard of it, and that's Pepto-Bismol. Bismuth subcarbonate, which is Pepto-Bismol, can prevent a lot of diarrhea, of traveler's diarrhea, if you take 4 doses a day of 2 tablespoonfuls of Pepto-Bismol. Well, if you do, it'll make your stools black, and you'll say, oh my goodness, I'm bleeding, but that's the bismuth. So if you're going to do anything, all those precautions I just gave you, don't take an antibiotic, think it's going to prevent me from getting sick. There's an exception to that I'll come to in a minute. And if you want to try Pepto-Bismol, fine. Now, the guy who should take an antibiotic is any patient who has inflammatory bowel disease, like ulcerative colitis or something like that, immune suppression, like an organ transplant, or somebody with HIV. Now, you learned more about that than you wanted to know, right?
No, I think those are some great travel tips. I mean, I haven't had the opportunity to travel out of the country that many times, but I do know when you're traveling, you should find out where you're going and check into, are there precautions that you need to take health-wise to go there? So, and I will say this, and I want to move on, but say your prayer as you are traveling that you don't go to another country and get sick, because that's when you will find out you're not at home.
Yeah. That's where your American Express Platinum card comes in.
You're not
fly
home.
you out of there. Anyway, I'll be in Morocco next week, so I'll let you know how it works out.
Recently, I've been finding it difficult to fall asleep. Now, I'm interested in this question because this actually applies to me every once in a while. Recently, I've been finding it difficult to fall asleep. By 5:30, I feel like I could fall right to sleep. However, when I lay down to actually go to sleep around 9:30 p.m., I am unable to actually fall asleep for some time. Is there something all natural I could do to try and remedy this? I could be sitting in my chair at 5:30 and like just keep nodding off and just say, you know, I give up and go to bed, and then you go to bed and it's like, I thought just a minute ago I was going to nod off and now I can't fall asleep.
Unfortunately, what that question asks is really that, is there a pill you can give me that'll help me lose weight?
Okay.
All right. It is, is there a pill that'll fix something when the fixing something is actually a behavior that needs to be relearned? Does that make sense to you? Because I've told you before that melatonin is a natural, at a certain dose.
Are you going to tell me what the bedroom is for?
No, I am going to tell you.
Well, you're going to tell me not the TV.
I'm going to do that.
Okay,
yes, I am. I'm going to
Sorry.
tell you that again in a minute. But
all right.
the answer to the question about something natural to help you sleep is yes, it's melatonin. But that's the natural. But that really won't fix this problem, because you've created in the question a problem different from trouble falling to sleep, and have put it into a behavior where you get fatigued in the afternoon and then you go to bed and you have difficulty going to sleep. So there is a variety of ways this is treated naturally, which is called behavioral therapy. They teach you how to stop this. The first one is sleep hygiene education, which I'll go to in just a minute. There is one called stimulus control. There's one called relaxation. And then there's one called sleep restriction therapy. Now, each of those sounds a little bit complicated. But the sleep hygiene says, one, sleep as long as necessary to feel rested and then get out of bed. Well, that's going to be, if you are in the 95%, it's going to be 7 or 8 hours. Second is maintain a regular schedule of sleep, a regular wake-up time and a regular go-to-sleep time. Try not to force sleep. Avoid all caffeinated beverages for at least 8 to 10 hours before you go to sleep. Avoid alcohol for at least 6 hours before you go to sleep. Avoid any kind of smoking, nicotine intake, chocolate, or anything else for at least 8 hours before you go to sleep. Get the bedroom where it looks like a place to go sleep. You know, not any light, no television in there, no radio in there. And then, this is a hard part in modern day, you want to avoid light emitting screens like smartphones or tablets for 2 hours before you go to bed. Now, okay, now you remember that I was talking about traveling and jet lag. Amanda remembers this really good, because when you travel longer than 3 time zones, the advice to set your biological clock so that you don't get jet lag and can sleep is to exercise in the daylight for 30 minutes or longer to reset your light dark biological clock. And if you can remember in your airplane, when you're looking at that magazine where they sell stuff, they actually even sell a thing you put on that shines light at you in the dark, so that your brain thinks it's daytime, and when you get to where you're going and you take it off and then it gets to be night, you can sleep. So that daylight exercise thing and that daylight you ruin when you go on your computer and your smartphone, because that bright light on that machine, it's 9 o'clock at night or it's 8 o'clock at night, you're getting ready to go to bed in 30 minutes, that screen has told you that it's daylight and it's not time to go to bed. When you're sitting in your chair in the house at 5 in the afternoon and you're not playing with it, then your brain is telling you this is sleep time, because the bright light is not out there. This is ambient light in the room. So you have to sort of change that behavior. Lastly, if you take any kind of a daytime nap and you nap in that chair and you nap for longer than 15 or 20 minutes, you're going to make it harder for yourself to go to sleep when you go to sleep that night. So that is the part that we call sleep hygiene or teaching. Now, I really don't want to ever get into anybody that has to take the sleep deprivation, but what happens with the way they do the sleep deprivation thing is you don't stay in bed. If you go to bed and you're not asleep in 20 minutes, then you get up and leave the bedroom and you do something relaxing, not on a bright screen, like read or play solitaire, or have your little glass of warm milk and stay out of the bedroom until you get sleepy and you go back. When you get to the point where you've got to totally relearn, then what you do is you deprive yourself of sleep for several days by wait until you're fatigued, go to bed. When you wake up, you get out of bed, and after you've done that 2 or 3 days, you'll be so tired that you'll go back in there and sleep for 8 hours. So there's a lot of things about the sleep business that is you're doing it to yourself in a habitual way, that you have unlearned the normal sleep pattern. And so the biggest offender, and it would be a big offender with you, you've got 4 of these things out right here now. You got 2 cell phones, a computer, and a tablet. And I know you well enough to know that the last thing you do before you go to bed is pop out emails or whatever, and you have seen that screen or a screen in the 2 hours prior to going to bed. So to make it simple, that's the first thing I would tell the editor, the writer of that question. Rather than taking the melatonin, figure out where your sleep problem is, get that part fixed, and then if you need the melatonin, go buy melatonin and take it, because we've already said it's natural, it's safe. If you take it about an hour before bedtime, it'll have a chance to get into your system, and it will help you sleep. And then you asked me about, tell you what the bedroom's for, and I'll do that one more time. And that is that you really do not eat in your toilet, and you need the bedroom to be focused on bedroom activities, which are sleep and companionship, and so that there should not be a television in there. You should not read in there. You should not write letters in there, which I always say write letters. People don't do that anymore, so you shouldn't do that in there either, because it's got a bright screen. And make the bedroom a place where you go to sleep, and then the habit will be to go to sleep. Is that too much, Amanda?
No, I got it.
All right?
I got it. Now, we know this next question, and we're a little pushed for time, but
we never push for time.
this next question obviously is not from me, because I am not a college track runner. But this individual, I am a college track runner. I have strained my hamstring in the past, but it doesn't hurt all the time. But each time I finish my 100-meter race, my hamstring is very sore. Is there anything I can do to help with this?
Well, first of all, I would tell him that I'm the wrong guy to ask, even though last week we talked in great detail about how you heal an athletic injury that interferes with performance, because he wrote the question by saying, I am a college athlete. First, he has an obligation and it's a contractual obligation that he's signed when he signed in to be a competitor with the NCAA, to report this event to the hierarchy at his college. The hierarchy at his college has a pyramid, and at the top of that pyramid is his trainer. And then as it goes down that pyramid, you got the trainer, you got the coach, and then you've got a medical team. He is hurting himself badly by continuing to compete, such that after a race his hamstring still hurts. So his original hamstring injury was never properly treated.
If it's still hurting.
If it's still hurting. So he should not be competing. And then we go back to last week, where he actually stops running, and he can swim if he wants, he can ride a stationary bike if he wants. We're assuming this isn't bad enough to where he needs to be on a crutch or have it splinted. But he does not do anything that makes that hamstring hurt. He does not run. He doesn't stand a long time, but he does nothing that makes that hamstring hurt until it stops hurting. And then he has a very graduated rehabilitation program where he does not increase his exercise by greater than 10% a week. Remember, I said if that guy was a runner, he gets on a stationary bike or he gets in a pool to start before he even gets back to walking or running. Lastly, why did he get the hamstring pull in the first place? A 100-meter dash is a sprint, and the hamstring's the proper one, the thing it most often tears in sprinters, not the thigh, not the calf. But once they have gotten where that has been adequately treated and healed, such things as can make that hamstring hurt can be the shoes are worn, foot plants improper, leg length discrepancy, or some technique in his running that needs to be modified. That's why this should all be in the hands of the coach, the trainer, and the physical therapist that they will have. I mean, any little small colleges, let's just say Zell Miller's college up there. What's that
Young
called?
Harris.
Young Harris, nice small college. They've got every bit of that up there. And if you're talking about somebody that runs for Clemson or Georgia, they got 40 of them in there. So I'm not the right guy to ask, but that's the right advice.
Okay, before we close, this question is out there, and we have to make this brief. We have the all-star panel over there. They're discussing what they're getting ready to talk about. Are there health benefits? Is that turmeric?
Turmeric.
All right, is there health benefits to turmeric? If so, what are they?
Yes.
Okay, moving right along.
All right.
I knew it was too good.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, yeah. Well, the answer is
what do you want to hear?
The internal and external benefits.
Okay, let's go to work first. Turmeric is the spice that is in a curry. And as we know, there's a tremendous amount of beneficial effect from things like cinnamon and ginger, and turmeric happens to be one. But there's a whole bunch of hype over it being magic for rheumatoid arthritis and curing you of cancer, making your hair grow and taking wrinkles out of your face and all the rest. Turmeric is used particularly in the Indian subcontinent, where it's very common for curry. And one of the people here in the audience indicated that they rub it on their face. That's a very, very common use of turmeric. It diminishes inflammation within the skin, and it does have a beneficial effect on the face or on the skin. Turmeric also, as I say, it's in curry, and it has a beneficial effect for dyspepsia and non-specific GI complaints. And is it a cure for peptic ulcer or inflammatory bowel disease? Probably not, but it indeed does have an effect of settling kind of the uneasy stomach, and it's generally used and most successful in people where the culture is used to it and uses it for that purpose, and that'll be people from the Indian subcontinent and Bangladesh and all of that. But we have it in our country because we do have so many people that that are here from India, and this turmeric that we get from India that's used in curry is entirely different from the turmeric that comes from Java and that part of the world, called Javanese turmeric root. And if you get hold of that stuff, which is they just call turmeric when they put it in some of these Chinese herbal remedies, that stuff is lousy and hurts you. So we're talking about the real turmeric, the yellow stuff you get at the Indian Indian stores or whatever. That's a good product. It's not magic, not going to cure your cancer or anything, but it's a good product. But that one from Java is poisonous.
Thank you, Dr. Whaley. We also want to thank Georgia Cancer Specialists affiliated with Northside Hospital. We appreciate them in sponsoring this segment. You can always find Ask the Doc with Dr. Whaley on our YouTube channel, FYN TV, Fetch Your News YouTube channel. We always put this segment up here so you can share it with your friends. Great information, travel tips. Very good information on travel tips.
That's good. And we got the JR tablet we were reading off.
Yes,
JR, we're reading off your tablet.
He's back there moving stuff around in the warehouse. I can't find him half the time, but I'm supposed to sell these tablets.
Well, I'm reading one.
Okay. I'm your host, BKP, and when we come back, it's time for the all-star panel. They're over there waiting. I don't know what we have to talk about. It's only maybe one or two things happened this week that we could bring up, but we'll do that
Stormy.
Easy there. No Stormy on the set. We'll be... That was pretty good. We'll be right back after these messages from Blue Ridge Circuit World. Take us a break.